So in today's episode, I want to talk with you about cooking in the mountains. We're going to look at the two stove systems that I use and the pros and cons to both of those systems and where they work their best and where they have some disadvantages. We'll also look at camping gas and the types of gas that I use. We'll look at why some cartridges are quite large and inexpensive and other cartridges are quite small and better to use at certain times of year. We'll also look at food and the types of food that you might want to consider taking with you if you're going out for a day or 2 days or 3 days camping, and the pros and the cons to rehydrated meals versus wet meals, and maybe cooking your own foods like pasta, rice or couscous and those sort of things. So first of all, let's look at the two types of stove system that I use. The first one would be this one. This is my sort of go-to when I'm in the hill sort of stove system. And these became really popular a few years ago. Jetboil came out with their own type. I think MSR came out with a first version and then a second version. And Primus have got their own version. There's loads of different makes out there that are doing very similar things. But MSR really sort of took my notice with the fact that it was such a good boiler and it was so efficient and so quick at boiling water in high winds, hence the name wind boiler. And they reckon this can boil something like half a litre of water in 2.5 minutes in 15-mile-an-hour winds. And I've actually tested this out in really high winds and it's really efficient, works really well. I've used it in 40-50 mile an hour winds and it still manages to burn really efficiently. So it stops you, wasting loads of fuel. As with a conventional stove, which we'll look at in a minute, often the heat gets blown out from underneath the stove. So the heat actually, you lose like 50% of the heat from the stove just out the side by the wind. So I really like this, really simple to use. As I said, Jetboil very similar as well, but MSR just with the speed that it boils water and the efficiency of the fuel use, it's my preference. And it also comes with a little cup on the bottom, and then it's got like a little, you can put these together and you can create like a little sipper. So you can put your cuppa in there and then you can sip out of it. So it reduces the need for any extra bits as well, like taking a cup with you or, that sort of thing. So yeah, nice, just a nice, efficient, user-friendly system. So that's sort of my first go-to. And the sort of pros of that, like I've already spoke about some of the pros, which are, the efficiency, the lightweight, the fact that it's just nice and small and easy to use. But also, it's great for using if you just want to use like boiling the bag meals. So if you're using rehydrated meals, these are fantastic because all you need is water really quickly, boil it up, pour it in, job done. And then maybe enough left for a coffee or a cup of tea afterwards, if you're that way inclined with tea. Fantastic system for that, but not so good for cooking in. What I've found is if you try and actually cook inside the boiler itself, it gets so hot so quickly that it generally burns anything that's on the inside. So it's okay for things like heating up soups, and things that are generally quite quick and don't need a lot of simmering or boiling. But if you want to put food into here that requires any sort of simmering, like rice, pasta, or anything like that, I do find that it burns it onto the bottom and then it becomes a bit of a pain to clean it out. So for me, this is literally, I just use this when I'm boiling water and using rehydrated meals or soups, and that's it. Anything else seems to be a little bit sort of faffy, just can't quite get the regulation right on the burner. The next sort of go-to would be like a conventional stove that you can put a pots and pans on the top. And I bought this. This is the Alpkit Coro stove, and I bought this probably about a year ago, and it was quite cheap. It was like, I think it was like £30, something like that. But it was, I thought, based on MSR's prices and Primus and other brands that were doing very similar lightweight stoves, I thought, it's not going to last me that long. It's been brilliant, really, really good. It's got like a nice stainless steel sort of flexi hose, but it's not too, I think it's stainless steel or stainless aluminium or something, but it's nice and lightweight. The actual unit itself is titanium, and I've used this in about -10 degrees, so it works really well and really efficiently in cold conditions. I've got a fuel sort of wind guard around the edge as well, like a wind guard that goes around here, which keeps the heat contained underneath the boiler. If you don't use a wind guard with these, you'll use a lot of fuel, and it becomes quite inefficient. So if you're going to use one of these, I would always recommend a lightweight wind guard that goes around the edge, which you'll see in just a minute. But yeah, fantastic stove, nice and lightweight. You can pop a food pan on the top, and then it opens up your options then to what you can cook. You can boil water in it. You can put a mocha pot, if you want to call it that, or a stove top onto the top if you want to take a stove top with you for good coffee. There's a lot more options with these units. I also really like this unit in the winter, and I favour this one over the wind boiler in the winter, because I often need to melt ice to make drinking water and to cook with. So I find the wind boiler actually burns the ice because it gets so hot. So I found that I have to have it on the lowest setting possible, and it still sort of incinerates the ice and it actually burns the water. Whereas this stove, it's got a little adjuster on the end there, and you can get it so there's just a little flame licking at the bottom of the pan, and I find that means that you can take a big pan with you, put lots and lots of snow and ice in the top, and then you can melt it down nice and slowly, which is a little bit more fuel efficient, but also it stops it burning the water. So yeah, really sort of versatile unit. Good if you're going with 2 people as well. So imagine 2 people, twice as much. Maybe if you're boiling water as well to keep it clean, you might not want to drink straight out of streams, so you might want to boil it, which I'll sometimes do if I'm unsure about the water source. So having a big pot on the top and being able to boil a lot of water for 2 of you, and put that in your Nalgene's for the next day, something like that is brilliant. Whereas you are limited to 1 litre with the wind boiler. So yeah, versatile, quite user friendly, small. I mean, if I show you the pack size to this, it's really, really small. So if I just wrap that up there, and you can see there, nothing to it. Yeah, budget, really nice. The other options are you can go down like the MSR route, and you will get a little bit lighter, and you also get a little bit more robust as well. So little things on this one, like the pipe here has got a few kinks in it, but it's fine, it's not affected the flow. But if you're going to rely on maybe going to a remote area, maybe you're going into the Himalayas, or you're going to go into the Alps, or you're going to do a long trek, in South America or something, you might want something that's a bit more serviceable and something that's a little bit more robust. So let's talk about gas. So there's lots of different types of camping gas available on the market, and if you were to go to a camping store or a local off licence in a rural area, you'll see lots of different brands and lots of different sort of variations on the market. So first of all, the most common ones that you'll see will be these ones, which are these blue bottles. These are butane. Butane is a cheap gas to produce, and it also requires the processing and putting it into the can is quite easy to do because it's a low pressure gas. It doesn't require a thick can, so the cans are generally cheap to make and easy to bottle. Downsides to butane. Butane has a low boiling point, so it boils at about -1, meaning that below about 2 degrees it becomes very, very inefficient and often won't light. Below 5 degrees it's very inefficient, and it will light, but it'll be not as efficient and use a lot of fuel in order to cook anything. So butane's very cheap, but not very useful or versatile when we're talking about mountains where the temperatures can go up and down, and even in the summer months the temperatures can drop below 0 on the summits. So making sure you've got a gas that is appropriate for what you want to achieve and what you want to do. And here we have the MSR ISO Pro, which is what I use quite a lot. There's lots of other different brands out there. Coleman do their own version, Jetball do their own version, and they're all different prices, but they're all around about the same. They're all like £5.50, £6 for cartridge. And these gas cylinders use a blend. So they use isobutane and they use a propane mix. And that'll be generally 80% isobutane and 20% propane. Some brands will use more 85, 15%, etc, etc. But they're all there and thereabouts, an 80-20 mix. And isobutane is a little bit more expensive to make than butane, and it's got a lower boiling point, so it's about -15 is the boiling point for isobutane. But if you mix it with propane, which has a boiling point of around about -44, then you create a very fuel efficient gas, or however you want to say it. It's very efficient in the winter when you use it as a fuel. So I really like using the isobutane propane mix, and found that it performs really well in really cold conditions. So I've used it in Scotland in the winter, -10, -15 degrees Celsius, and works fine. You will use a little bit more fuel in the cold. That's with all gases. The colder it is, generally the more you need, the more fuel you need. So if I was going out in winter for a couple of days, I might take 2 of these cartridges rather than just one, because first of all I want to make sure I've got a backup, because winter it's really quite vital that you've always got a bit of a backup there. And you'll use a lot of fuel, so you can pretty much use one of these for one evening of cooking. And then if you need some boiling water the next day, or you need to cook some food, porridge, whatever, then you might need another one. So just bear that in mind, that cold conditions, all fuels will burn more fuel for the same job. So just bear that in mind. But yeah, those are my sort of the 2 go-tos. There's a few other brands out there like Primus that do the same thing. They also do larger cartridges as well. Just bear in mind that if you take one big cartridge rather than 2 small ones, if for any reason you pierce your cartridge, or you accidentally take out a half full or an empty cartridge, which does happen, then you know you're leaving yourself open to a little bit of error there. So it'd be worth just taking 2 smaller cartridges. At least then you've always got a little bit of a backup in case you mess up, or in case something happens when you're out on the hill and the cartridge expels all the gas. So yeah, winter I'll probably use 2 small cartridges. Okay, so we've looked at types of stove that I use, and we've also looked at gas cartridges and the types of gas that we'd use when we're out and about. So let's look at food options. Probably my first go-to food option when I'm out and about is going to be the traditional sort of boil in the bag or rehydrated meals. So this is a Summit to Eat. I generally use this. These are quite available if you go to like camping shops and that sort of place. I also use Expedition Foods, which I really like. I order them online and they do loads of different flavours, but the calorie options with these are really important. So if I'm going to be going out and I don't know, I'm going to be going out for a 2-day hike, which isn't going to actually be that sort of tiring on my body, I might just take a 600 calorie meal or something around that sort of calorie mark. So these Summit to Eat meals are 600 calories, and the actual bag itself weighs about 130 grams, I think it is. So quite a lot of calories for the weight. And then all you do is you take the little absorption sachet out the inside of the pack, pour your water inside, zip it up, leave it for about 5-10 minutes, and then you've got yourself a nice meal ready to go. The 800 calorie and 1000 calorie meal options that Expedition Foods do would be if I'm going to go out running maybe for 2 days and I need a lot more calories in the system. So with those, they're a little bit heavier, they're sort of 200 grams for the pack, but it's massively important to get those extra calories in. That's especially if you're out for 2 days, the biggest problem that people have is not taking enough food with them, or the right food. So for me, when I get into camp at night, I want to know that I've got a really good, nutritious but calorie rich meal, so that I've got loads to go on the next day, so it sort of fuels me up for the next day. So yeah, rehydrating meals, brilliant. Probably not as tasty as other options, but really good in the fact that low weight, high calorie, which is pretty much what we're looking for when we're out and about in the hills. Other options that you'll sort of see people use are wet meals like these. So this is a wafer, chicken tikka and rice. Ooh, bit posh there, but yeah, really nice. But the calories on these, so this pack in this one has got, yeah, this is about 450 calories, and it's a 300 gram meal. So it's twice the weight of the rehydrated meals and not as many calories either. So for me, you're carrying a lot of weight, but not as much reward when it comes to calories. So that's why I don't favour these. I generally use these if I'm going to be at a campsite and I've got the car there and I don't have to carry them around. But these meals are really tasty. They're far more tasty than the rehydrated meals. I almost think of these as being like tin meals. So if you see like a tin chili con carne or tin spaghetti and sausage, it's that type of meal that you get in these. But just, yeah, not as calorie rich and quite heavy. So if you have to carry, like 4 of these, it's over 1 kilo in weight. It's a lot of weight to be carrying if you're covering long distance, and especially if you want to go fast in the mountains, because you want to keep the weight down. So for me, don't really use these, but if you like your food and you want something that's a little bit nicer, then you know, these are quite a good option. Definitely worth considering if you're out and about. So those are the 2 popular options, but let's look at other options for food as well. So if you're going to be cooking on a normal stove and you've got pots and pans to use, other options are things like rice. Rice is brilliant. There's lots of different options when it comes to using rice. You don't just have to boil rice and have it on its own or have it with, you know, a sauce. You can get a Ziploc bag. You can pour rice into a Ziploc bag with some powdered milk and some sugar, and you've got like a rice pudding, which is really high in energy, loads of carbs, loads of sugar, all the sort of good stuff that you need when you're out and about in the hills. So I definitely recommend that sort of meal, but obviously bear in mind, if you do it in something like a jet boiler or a wind boiler, you need to simmer this. It needs to simmer for about 15-20 minutes. So you're probably going to want to use something that you can put a saucepan on and you can really dial down that heat so that it doesn't burn the rice pudding to the bottom of the pan. So make sure you use this with a normal pot and pan type stove. But you can obviously just boil rice up. It's quite lightweight for what it is. Couscous is really good as well. Couscous weighs nothing, and it's good as well. Couscous is good if you're gluten intolerant. So you can take couscous as a substitute for for pasta, perhaps, mix sauces into that. So it's quite a good option. Something that I've found a few years ago, that I think it was some French climbers that I watched were eating a lot of this. And it's polenta, and for a lot of people they see polenta as just being like this chewy block thing that you make. But if you mix polenta with boiling water and a handful of cheese or parmesan and mix it all in and mix it up, it creates a really nice creamy mash. And it's really high in carbohydrates, and it's suitable for vegetarians. And this particular brand here, it claims that it is suitable for vegans. So you obviously wouldn't put cheese in it if you're a vegan, but it's a good option if you want something like a lightweight mashed potato alternative, or something that's just a bit different to mashed potato. It's a real good little option. So polenta is my little tip, and I use this quite a lot if I'm going out. If I'm going out for multiple days, I'll definitely make sure I've got a bag or a little container with some polenta and cheese in, because it's brilliant. Yeah, it's nice and lightweight, really high in calories, and it's quite healthy for you as well. So good little tip there, polenta. And the other options are as well, you've got cup of soups. So I'll generally take a cup of soup or or one of these pasta shot, mug shot type meals, and I'll have that as a starter, or I'll have it later on. So I'll have my main meal, and then later on I might have a pasta mug shot, because it's just extra calories, and it's the salt as well. We look at calories a lot, and we look at fats and maybe vitamins and nutrients that we're getting with our main meal, but salts are really important as well, especially if it's hot. We sweat a lot, you sort of sweat most of your salts out through your body, so it's good to try and get all those back in again. So cup of soups, mug shots, anything like that is a really good way of getting some of those salts and some extra nutrients back in the system. So that's always useful when you're out and about. So So I hope you enjoyed today's video about camping stoves, camping gas, and what to sort of take out with you when you're out cooking in the hills. And I hope it's given you some ideas and some things to work with, and maybe expanding your knowledge just a little bit on the sort of things that you need when you want to cook in the mountains. So if you like today's video, subscribe to our YouTube channel, check out our Facebook page, The Mountaineering Company, or visit our website, themountaineeringcompany.co.uk, for details about all the courses and events that we offer throughout the year.